28mm f2.8 lens for the Z-mount system. I've had this lens for quite a while, been using it for various types of photography, but my main focus has been at conventions, taking photos of cosplayers, basically like a higher quality snapshot lens. It's been working out pretty nicely, but I do have some thoughts on image quality and other aspects. Let's go over the technical specifications of the 28mm f2.8 lens. It is full frame capable. If you're using a DX APS-C size sensored camera, you'll get a 53-degree field of view. If you're using a full frame camera, it is 75 degrees. Maximum reproduction ratio of 0.2x, 9 lens elements in the lens with 8 groups. Aperture range from f2.8 to f16, has 7 diaphragm blades that are rounded. Does have their super integrated coating, but it is not an S-type lens, so it's on the lower end of their Z-mount lenses. Has 2 STM motors inside apparently, which are stepping motors. It is very quiet. I like that aspect of the lens, so it's good with video situations. However, we can check that out and see what it looks like. And also I did a test with focus breathing in the two lenses. You can see the differences. It does have a 52mm filter thread on there, which is a very common, easy to find size. Approximate dimensions of the lens, 2.8 inches or 70mm by 1.7 inches or 43mm. Another negative of this lens, if you want to consider a negative, is it has a plastic mount. You might be asking, why would you get the 28mm f2.8 lens compared to something like the kit lens, which is 24 to 50mm f4 to 6.3. The big differences here is the maximum aperture. You're getting a benefit of f2.8 compared to f4.5 of the kit lens, and then that changes the shutter speed, so 1/80th of a second or 1/30th of a second, or you can compensate with ISO. Surprisingly, in the center of the frame, f2.8 and the prime lens is very similar to the kit lens at f4.5 around that focal length. That's a nice benefit, is that you still get high quality at f2.8 in the center of the frame at least. Here you can see a nice benefit of the 28mm f2.8 compared to the kit lens with those different apertures and the background point source lights, bokeh, whatever you want to call it. Much rounder, larger, better looking in that background with the 28mm. With both lenses at f4.5, here you can see that the prime lens is not quite as rounded as the kit lens, so it looks like there is some focus variation here. I think the prime lens here is slightly front focused. The kit lens is slightly back focused. Here, both lenses at f5 for the aperture. I think there's a little bit more detail in the prime lens than the kit lens at this aperture. However, there is a little bit more fringing as well on the prime lens. You can clearly see the fringing on the prime lens. Looking at the background point source lights, the prime lens actually is not as rounded as the kit lens here. This prime lens is not quite as good on the edges as that kit lens, which is not great. At f8, they're very similar. I think the prime lens cleans up a little bit better at f8. Now it still has more fringing on the edges. At f8, the prime lens is definitely improving. It's not quite as good at the edges of the frame as the kit lens. You can see more color fringing, although the kit lens, there is definitely some as well. Same situation here. You can see there is a little bit higher quality at f8 with the kit lens compared to this f2.8 prime lens, but you are getting the benefit of the larger aperture range, and it's pretty compact, I guess. I don't know. My first test with this lens was outdoors, just doing a nature photo walk. See the results there. Even with f2.8, you can get some pretty nice stuff as long as you focus close enough to the camera. Consider the minimum focus distance, but the benefit is the internal focus. I really like that feature in lenses. The sun star capabilities of this lens are not great. Even f16, you can see that there aren't really strong lines coming out. I was not thrilled with this first nature photo walk. Definitely could be better. However, I think the main thing that I'm going to use this lens for is going to conventions, taking photos of cosplayers. It's compact, it's lightweight, it's convenient. The focal length is nice for that specific situation where I can get full body photos of people, closer photos, and it just works out well, especially since a lot of the time they'll be around the center of the frame. I really wish it was a little bit faster aperture. I also use this lens at a Japanese garden. You can see it's good for snapshots, especially situations like this. Go to an event, it's convenient, it's compact, it's quiet, works well enough. Of course, you can use a kit lens, but then you miss out on that large aperture range, which I do think is a benefit. Here's Anime Magic. You can get an idea of what I think this lens is best for with these cosplay photos. So you can get full body photos of the person, get up closer, it still looks pretty decent, even though it's relatively wide angle. Usually with conventions, lighting is not the best, so I'm definitely going at that f2.8 aperture most of the time. It's worked out well. I don't need to care too much about the edges of the frame, you know, where the person's face is going to be. Usually in a vertical photo works out nicely. Definitely sufficient, especially in these situations where I'm relying on the higher ISO performance of the camera. Optical quality is not going to be a huge consideration. I also took this combination with 1.4 firmware to try out at another convention called C2E2. Same situation, it worked out well. I enjoyed using it. The 28mm f2.8 Z-mount lens, I think it's an interesting option. I think it's good for snapshots, documentary style photography, relatively wide angle on full frame. For nature photography, nature situations, I'd say there are definitely a lot of better options than this lens, but if cost is a large consideration, you can at least check it out because you can use smaller apertures and improve that optical quality from 2.8 to f8. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'm Scott Bonsai. Thanks.